Welcome to the Ranking Heroes, a podcast where we discuss different strategies with the experts behind them. I'm Nebojša, your host, and here is Nenad, my co-host. And today we have a very special guest coming from the country we all love and go on a vacation, Greece, with the beautiful seas and great SEO experts. So it's wonderful to have you today, Dimitris.
Nice to be here, guys.
I just want to say to all the listeners that Dimitris is an expert in the SEO and CRO and also a founder of a digital agency, Atropos Digital. So to kick off this properly, I'll ask you, Dimitris, if you can share your journey into the field of SEO and what inspired you to specialize in this area.
Yeah, okay. So I had a pretty long journey with SEO, but also a very standard one. So I'm originally a developer. I studied coding in college. I actually studied electrical engineering, but I majored in software, so I became like software engineer. Uh, I knew I never wanted to actually be an engineer full time, like a coder full time. So I worked as an analyst in sales for a while for a big conglomerate, and then I actually hated the corporate world. Like that was a turning point for me. And leaving that company, I decided to start freelancing, building websites, WordPress, like basic stuff. I was still very young. And at the time, I started my own blog. So for a very long time, I had an interest in learning techniques, how to learn faster, how to memorize better. And I wanted to start a blog of my own on that. And I literally was writing the articles and I started studying SEO. Right, because I want to grow my own blog. That was it, right?
Yeah. Sorry for interrupting you. Are you referring to meta learners that you
Exactly.
started back in December? Can you tell us more about that? Since that
Yes.
was like the first project that got.
Yeah, that was the very first thing I was doing, for myself. Apart from a couple of websites I had built for, as a freelancer, smaller websites, and so I built that blog. It was pretty much standard WordPress blog, and I knew nothing. Imagine that I knew coding, but I knew nothing about marketing, like literally zero.
Yeah.
Marketing in general, not just SEO, right? So I'm starting that, and I wrote, I think, 5 or 6 articles. I would go to Starbucks and I would write the articles by hand because I was getting so distracted on the computer. I just couldn't write, so I would write them by hand and then type them out on the computer. Very vanilla stuff, And I wanted to grow that. So the first thing I did is I reached out to every person I ever knew, like on Facebook, and I was like, "Hey, I created this website. Here it is." And it actually started getting a lot of traction. Like just from that for SEO, I got a CNBC backlink. Through Haro, if I recall correctly, right?
Yeah.
I've got more than 200, I think, like quality. Referring domains right now, all just from the quality of content. I never did any link building other than a few Haro pitches I did at some point. But the funner part wasn't that. As soon as I had it online, the very first month I had it online, I saw that a company I was following in the US that had online courses, they were looking for someone to help them produce their podcast, like very, very different from
Specific
SEO.
thing, yeah.
Yeah, and they had courses on memory, right? So I was talking about how to learn memory, and I had learned from them. That's how I knew them. So I reached out. They were looking for a native English speaker. I'm not a native English speaker, but I still reached out. And I joined the team, like for a few hours a week, just helping them with their podcast. Did that for free for a few months, just for access to their courses. And at the end of that, they were very happy with me. I was very happy with them. And I was like, I want to keep working for you for more. And the guy was like, okay, but what are you going to be working on? I was like, SEO. I'm going to do SEO for you. But at the time I had my blog for like 4 months. So I knew the basics, maybe, right? But I was like, I want to do SEO for you. So I joined the company part-time doing SEO for them. And that was probably the best decision of my life, right? First of all, I learned a ton of SEO because I started from zero, but now, I had a salary, I had a manager, like I had everything I needed to keep me accountable and actually grow in that. But at the same time, this was a very marketing heavy business. They had some huge success in Udemy, and they had courses of their own that were like the higher level on Thinkific, just giving some, practical context as well. So they were spending maybe like 75,000 a month on ads at the time. And I started doing SEO, but I I went on to become their marketing tech guy. So you want integrations between two systems, I would build them. You wanted upsells and funnels, I would build them. Like I did all of that, right? Anything website or tech related, and it wasn't like software engineering, but scripts. Like I was a
But
scripty
still,
kid.
still, it's programmatic. So I have a question for you regarding all that. So we have a similar journey in terms of, hey, I started as an engineer, but I never saw myself as an engineer. But hear me out. Whenever you approach discussing marketing or SEO with a developer, like a person who is a software engineer, you are always facing a stigma. Like when it comes to marketing, those people rely on inputs and outputs. So you can just tell them, "Hey, I'm gonna do a campaign that's aimed to do this or to achieve this, etc." How did you manage to get over that bridge, to get over those stigma as a developer who was engaged in marketing and SEO? So how come you didn't have that, or did you have those same opinions earlier? How did you overcome them?
Oh, I really did. I really did have those opinions earlier. I think there are two or three things to what you asked. First of all, I started with SEO, right?
Yeah,
And when you start with SEO, what's one of the first things you encounter? Technical SEO. It was like,
exactly.
and I was building websites already. It was like the easiest transition in that sense.
Yeah.
Two, I was always interested in, I was a coder, but I was also interested in business. So while I was in college, I actually studied for myself like finance, and I took part in finance competitions. I was always nerdy, okay? And so the business side of things made more sense with marketing. And the third thing is, in that company, that US company with the courses, they were very data driven. Like they were spending so much money on ads specifically that it was all about numbers. And I can deal with numbers. I can deal with creative, like, creative marketing. It's not
Yeah,
my exam,
yeah.
but numbers I can do. And analytics and tracking and marketing tech and upsells and sales and lifetime values and all those things. These were very easy for my engineer brain.
So you basically came up. I mean, basically your first encounter with it. You came to a company that is also data driven, that has that data. But tell me, would it make the difference if you came up to another company that doesn't have that data? What would your first steps be there? Would you just give up or try to consolidate any data behind it?
So nowadays, I wouldn't give up, right? I have the skill set and the experience to not only know what data I need, not only know how to set up the analytics to get it, but I also now know how to talk to the company and make them understand why they need that and why they need, for example, to pay for me to set those things up and everything. Now I can do that. But I think if I had started in a company that didn't have that approach, I would have quit. Like I mean, I would have
Yeah,
persisted. I would have tried, but I don't know
but
if
after
I
a
would have
while.
succeeded. Yeah,
Also, I have sort of a controversial opinion, but I just want to see your opinion on it. So, a technical SEO is just a guy who is resolving work of software developers or general web developers who are not following web standards, consolidated web standards. So if a software developer or a web developer would just follow through the web standards that they learned in school, like vanilla, then a technical SEO wouldn't be there as calling as a job description, right?
yeah. No, I don't think that's a controversial take, man.
Yeah, cool. Just wanted
And
to.
I feel like if the same way we want writers to not just be writing but be familiar with SEO standards and write for SEO, we should expect that from developers that work on public facing websites as well. Like they need to be set up to some standards that will make a big difference to the client's results. Even if an SEO is never involved, setting up a good website, a correct website for your client should be a standard, right? That's I think I agree with you a lot, 100%.
Also, another thing, you mentioned accountability earlier. Does this mean that you won't that you have troubles engaging in anything if you don't have accountability behind it. So
Bro,
you
are you
wouldn't
kidding me?
develop anything creative or come up with something new unless you have accountability behind it.
Bro, are you
So
kidding?
for
Is that like a
instance,
research? Is that a question you prepared?
no, I just
Okay.
asked.
I've had so much trouble with procrastination. It's been my core problem forever. I've been addicted to gaming. I've had like all those things to a point where, also because I was in a company that was doing online courses, I've created an online course on procrastination.
Awesome.
I don't actively sell it nowadays because now I'm focused on SEO and my SEO agency. But there is a course on procrastination, both in English and in Greek, and the concept is there's no silver bullet, that solves everything. But I found solutions. I found hacks that work, right? And so what you asked has been for me one of the biggest chapters in my life. And funny story, like funny small story, creating that course was one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life because of procrastination.
You're going
Awesome.
against yourself.
Oh yeah, I mean for two because the course I wrote all of it. I wrote scripts and then I recorded that with the teleprompter. And it's all on video. It's on camera. I'm standing. There's green screen behind me. There are things happening. Right. It's not a small production, but I couldn't see myself ever completing such a big project before. And it took like 2.5 months of writing and maybe 9 months to have everything ready. And ever since I did that, and I struggled a lot, I've never had such a hard time doing something big again. Like that one time was life changing.
Yeah, I had
Whoa, man.
I always needed like a goal or some accountability to actually develop something that I came up with. So for instance, we made several versions and upgrades of our reporting, SEO reporting, but whenever I actually made an upgrade on it, it was because I had issue or a client had an issue. So some accountability needed to move me forward. But these days, I just use a model. If I'm going to do that, if you're going to do the work, you're going to do it out of spite or out of passion. So those are the only two drivers. No procrastination there. But if it's not out of spite or out of passion, I'm not doing it at all.
I
Yeah,
completely
exactly.
understand.
And I want to
Also,
go back.
regarding, yeah,
Yeah,
go.
I just wanted to go back. I don't want to let it slip. When you said that you now know the approach and how to explain to the client the advantage of SEO and how it will contribute to the website, to the company, and the organic revenue that you can make happen. So, do you have any like materials that you share on the call, or this is something that you just point out? You already have some things that you repeat, or you make it like unique for each client and each approach individually? How do you do it?
Um, I still follow the unique approach. I find that unlike what I expected in the beginning, explaining SEO and its value hasn't been that hard. Mostly because people that come to me usually are already thinking about it or looking for it. It's not like people who have never heard of it or what it can do for them. There is this let's say story. It's not a story, like it's an example that I give often of I take a user journey, where a user Googles one of their keywords, finds them, goes in, ends up filling a form. I personalize the example to each company, but I just guide them through something they have experienced themselves when I need to. But what I found needs more. They respond to more is like explain to them how they're gonna be communicated with, like what's gonna happen in their relationship, how the clients are gonna be getting everything we do, they're gonna be getting a deliverable out of it, and how they'll be seeing their the growth, not the growth, but the progress to everything we do. And I think
Justification of each step you do,
yeah, exactly.
basically.
And I think the biggest thing of anything is something pretty standard in the industry nowadays. I just tied back to the result they care for, right? So
And what about like if you cannot achieve any result, let's say in the first 2 or 3 months, how do you make them wait until the third month or something like that?
Okay, so when I started with the agency model and the Atropos, which is like 2.5 years now,
Mm-hmm.
that part,
Mm-hmm.
I was already more than qualified, with on SEO.
Mm-hmm.
But I've seen myself during the last 2.5 years. I've grown much more in client communication than in SEO itself, which I've also grown in. Right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
there's not a single thing we do nowadays in our agency that the client doesn't receive a deliverable out of. Right? Even if it's an
Absolutely.
analysis step, if we analyze how content has been performing in order to decide which content to optimize, they get a spreadsheet with data on it.
Hmm.
And my clients, mostly enterprise and software companies, they love data, right? So they get a
Yeah.
spreadsheet of it. We optimize something, they get a spreadsheet out of it, right? Or
Yeah.
doc or Google Doc. They get a spreadsheet out of everything. So I cover the time SEO needs to work with progress, with deliverables, with execution, right? So they're receiving things and we're having calls, so we're doing this and that. And I
Yeah.
found that with most clients, I can get to the 6 month mark
Mm-hmm.
before they actually expect to see the results as well, not just the work,
Got it.
which is a
Oh,
lot
okay.
of time. It can work really well. Like if I have 6 months, generally, we can't guarantee results, but generally, we have at least something quality of good quality to show.
Do
Yeah, man.
you
I mean, I really
form and
like how
guide?
you focused. Yeah, I just want to say that I really liked how you focused your ICPs on the same types of people as you are, like software development companies, etc. Because you just need to treat them
People who
how you
understand
would
the
treat
input and
yourself.
output.
Yeah.
So basically, it's a win-win. Like you know their language, they know yours,
Yeah.
and it's easy to discuss with them and make them understand the data and how the work is gonna go. So that's a good thing, and I think that's a great advice for everyone starting their SEO agency. If they have some unique skills and characteristics, they should also. I mean, they don't need necessarily to do it, but it will be easier for them to understand the same type of clients as
Yeah.
they are, like with the same personal traits and everything.
Yeah, you don't have to go super narrow, right? It's not like I'm focused to software
Yeah, yeah,
engineers.
yeah,
We're mostly focusing on enterprise SEO, so
yeah,
large contract B2B businesses. Software is often in that category,
yeah,
because I happen to understand like that kind of business and that these kind of people much better.
yeah,
I think I would be very bad at at client communication if I was trying to service small local SEO businesses. It's not a model I
mm-hmm.
have in my mind. On the other hand, if another SEO, their father was a dentist, for example, like focus on that. You know what they need. You know what they're looking for. You know their thoughts day to day. Not just dentists, but
Exactly,
local SEO business. So sell to them, right? That's gonna be your sweet spot, especially when you're getting started.
exactly,
Are you
right, right.
are you working with smart goals? I mean setups, smart goal setups when you start SEO campaigns. Like in this specific time, we're going to achieve this, and this is our guideline for it.
No, and
No.
I'm not sure if that's good or not. Like I haven't made the conscious decision not to, but because I need to deliver a lot of work to the clients the first few months to cover, for results,
Hmm.
I follow in the beginning of my campaigns a more holistic approach. So instead of thinking
That's the
like,
thing that I just wanted to cover because that smart goal setups, I mean, it's something that always, whenever you try and find any tutorials, whenever you find like, let's say, any tutorials regarding SEO, they will always tell you, find out your ICP approach, create a smart goal, etc., etc. But SEO is the goals of SEO can be different depending on the stages the website is in. If it's a fresh website, your goals are indexation and increases in organic keywords that you're being
Yeah,
indexed and found for. If your website already exists for a while, then you want to move with rankings. If it exists for a while, after that, you want to increase in traffic. You want to increase in conversions coming in from that part. So setting up a smart goal depends on the stage, and you cannot always apply it to each individual client. You need that holistic approach. The question was more oriented to how do you approach it, and you explained it yourself. You have a holistic approach depending on the client.
yeah,
But yeah, there's a lot of deliverables now. When it comes to SEO, you always when it comes to your clients, you set up a specific KPI, right? Uh, this KPI differs based on their stage, right?
Mm,
How do you handle when that KPI is not performing according to your planned actions, plan
um,
development?
so first of all, the
Because
most
KPI
common,
is different than
yeah,
deliverable. I
hundred
mean,
percent.
that's the whole point. How do
100%.
you handle
So,
that?
first of all, the KPI we usually track for clients is some form of form fill lead submission. Because this is the kind of clients we most often get and work on. So, I have two different things I do in that case. The first is I try to bring forward some leading signals of success, right? So, I'm if we're tracking form submissions, but we haven't seen that yet, but we have growth in keywords we care about. I'll be like, we are not where we want to be with form submissions yet. But in the beginning, I told you it might take longer than 6
Yeah.
months. But here are key keywords that we've actually seen serious increase for, which are the main service you offer, for example.
Yeah.
So we're getting there. Or you are nowhere to be found for your brand name. Now you're position one for that. Like things like that. And the other thing I do is, because we're also a CRO agency, less so than we're an SEO agency, I help them improve their lead submission flow as well. So someone comes on a form, and most websites, most of my clients, when I start working with them, they have these forms that have like 12 fields on them that no one will ever fill. And I'm like, no, let's simplify that. Let's only ask for a name and email, maybe one more drop down thing. And when they hit submit, they go to a second form that asks for the rest of the details, right? And we significantly increase lead form submissions. And I guide them, we don't do it for them, but I guide them to build an email marketing flow for if they only fill the first step. So they start getting a lot more leads thanks to that new flow, which really gives me time to get SEO up to speed for them.
I have another question regarding that. So there are only a few things like goals in terms of conversion goals that you're seeing when it comes to website. You can either sell products, sell services, collect donations, collect subscribers, and that's about it. But in terms of lead gen, now you are increasing their form submissions, but you will never know if it's a qualified lead or an unqualified lead, because this data is not returned to Google Analytics, where you would confirm like this came from organic traffic and we know
Yeah.
that we have increase in those leads. This is a thing that you need to communicate directly with the how to call it, with the shareholder, with the owner of that company. There are ways in which you can do that technically by tying in some email marketing software, some funnels, etc. But usually these are not the initial steps that you do when you do that part. So how do you handle the response when you say, hey, we had an increase in number of form submissions, but the client says, hey, but I'm not getting any new clients from it. So
Yeah.
how do you handle justifying your efforts if
Yeah.
it doesn't actually benefit the bottom line of the client? If
Okay.
you're selling CRO via optimizing for organic channel,
Okay.
let's say,
I'll
for
I'll
lead gen.
I'll answer that first, but I want to hear your answer too at the end. Like,
Okay,
how
cool.
would you approach it? So,
Cool.
there are a few, not tricks, not at all tricks, but there are a few things we do. The first thing is we often implement some form of custom tracking on their forms. So, very simple things. One, the original referrer that brought them to the website, I know the analytics platforms track that, but I want that on the form submission. So, Dimitris submitted the form with that email, and the referrer was google.com or bing.com, and I also track their user journey on the website. So a simple list of the first page they followed, the second, the third. So for every lead submission they have, we know if it came from organic and what flow they followed on the website. That gives me the opportunity to be like, that client you closed, that was us, right? I don't know if analytics say that to you, the form says that to you, right? So that's the first thing. And the bigger thing is we also help them on their MQL and SQL flows. So I mentioned earlier having a smaller form and then a second form that asks for the rest of the details. We've implemented flows that have extra steps, but depending on their previous answers, and if they're qualified, so the marketing qualification happens on the website, and if they're qualified, they go to a HubSpot or Calendly thing. If they're not, they just go to a thank you page and they get nurtured by email. So we help them have more qualified sales calls, but with less people. We get them more lead submissions, but they spend less time. So even if they don't get more submissions or more clients, they at least save time. Like, we do all those things to help them improve on their flow.
You're basically like you're diversifying the flow based off if it's not a fully qualified lead, then it goes down this path. If it's a full qualified lead, then it goes to this path. However, in Google Analytics, you can only track page paths or event paths. So in this case, it lands on a specific form. Then it goes to a second page that has some specific path, and you just track paths that way. That way you're tying it to a channel, and you're diversifying path based on based if it's qualified or unqualified. That was the thing that I wanted to ask, because any other way, if you're not forming it with paths and you're tracking it with events, you will need to fit a cookie in a user's window. And I wanted to call you out on GDPR because you're Greek and you're a cradle of democracy, and I just wanted to hear your opinion on it. I mean, there are ways in which you can do it. There are ways in which you can do it. There are even ways in which you can avoid getting at any point suspended by Google Analytics for getting that data. But the way you actually thought of it is making two different paths and having those go through the forms is much, much better and much more elegant solution to do that way, because in case you don't have it like that, you would always need to rely on the owner's response. Like, we had this amount of qualified leads, and we cannot tie them if they came from this path or this channel unless we have that submitted via form as well, like what is their referral channel. But yeah, you have a much elegant solution for it, and to be honest, I was actually expecting it, but I needed to call you on GDPR, so I just wanted to know if you're going that way or not.
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to be very careful with GDPR. We have a bunch of US clients, so...
And California is full, like, GDPR. I mean, California basically has a whole EU laws regarding it.
Yeah.
Not the rest of the states, but California specifically, I know.
True.
Right. Dimitris, and I wanted to ask you, what motivated you to start Atropos Digital, and what would you say that sets your company apart from other SEO agencies?
Okay. Let me go back to the story a little bit, right? So I was doing SEO for the company with online courses. I eventually even became the COO of the company. I mean, it wasn't that big a company, like 15, maybe 20 people with contractors, right? But I ended up running most of the day-to-day. Like, not there were other very qualified people there. Everyone knew their job, so it was an easy COO position, but I was running a lot of the day-to-day. But at some point, the owner had already, had a lot of success. He was like, okay, I want to slow down and I want to just, keep it running. I don't want to grow anymore. And I was like, I want to grow. At the time, I had started a podcast in Greece, and it had become the biggest podcast in the country already in Greek, right? A podcast in Greece, in Greek. And it was still on the same context, learning, mindset, memory, stuff like that, similar to my blog. So that became my full-time thing for about 2 years. And it was 3 people that we were working on it full-time. That became my business. We built physical products, we built courses, we built a lot of stuff. And I wasn't primarily in SEO at the time, but I was engaging on a lot of that for, that business on, e-commerce, digital products all at once. But apart from the podcast recording itself, which I loved, I hated the day-to-day of that business. I just freaking hated it, right? So I did for 2 years, and I was like, you know what? I hate this. I'm not even making a lot of money out of it or anything. My costs are covered, but nothing more than that. And I was like, okay, I'm going back to the thing I know and love, as my primary thing SEO, and I joined the agency space. Right, it was my first agency gig at the time. Like I've been working with SEO for a while now, but not through an agency.
Is it
And
a Greek SEO agency or a US
no,
agency?
it's a Serbian SEO agency.
Okay.
You know the guys, yeah. And so Serbian that operated mostly in the in the US and Canada. Um, so in the beginning. I joined in internally. So I was the SEO manager internally. My client was the agency itself, and they weren't selling SEO at the time. So they approached me. We have a client that's interested in SEO. Do you wanna do that? I was like, yes. I did great work. Client loved it, and we started selling SEO externally. It only took 4 months before I had to stop working internally because we had too much client work, which was awesome, right? And I was doing that for them. And the first thing that freaked me out, to answer the question now, the first thing that freaked me out was the white label chains, right? Because I could see a company for a website, for example, paid 20,000, that was given to another company for, 12,000, and then was given to another company for 5,000, and then to another company for like 2,000. And the person that actually built the website got like 1,000 something dollars, and the original client had paid 20,000. And it was like, the website was crappy, right? I was like, it makes sense that it's crappy, 95% of the margins is lost to the white label chain. And I was like, what would it look like if I could build a company that is just a company that takes on the work? I'm not like that. I wouldn't be the one part of a chain where everyone just tries to get margins. I would be the company where the other person would pay me the 20K. I would do an amazing job for them and still make a lot of profit, right? So that was the time when I transitioned to building my own thing effectively, and I mean, ever since, it's been going really well.
I
So
love to hear that. Did you already have some clients that you could immediately start working with, or did you have to do something else to acquire more clients and start getting revenue in your company?
I had nothing. So not nothing. I had my collaboration with that agency,
Exactly.
right? So initially I was internal, but soon I transitioned as an external partner that still had the same clients from them. But everything was going through that one relationship for a while, right? And that was it was an anxiety thing, to say the least, right? I hear through the grapevine that that relationship might fall off at some point, relatively soon. That was like, I guess, a little less than 2 years ago. And I'm like, okay, I need to step up and just, take on more clients. So I did a combination of everything. I did some cold sales. I got one large client out of that. But my biggest lead generation thing until has been referrals. So there are people, like you guys, that
Yeah.
I appreciate, and they appreciate me back, I hope. And this is where most of my referrals have come from. Yeah, I know. It's like I haven't had that many referrals from clients because clients don't generally talk about these things. But people in the industry, people doing websites, developers, designers, other people that we've worked together that really appreciate me, and vice versa, they have been my best source of referrals. Right, so I really invest in those relationships as well myself, not for the referrals, but because I really appreciate these people. I would recommend them in a heartbeat, and I get that back effectively.
I was always going with that same like motto. If I do my work properly, if I
Exactly.
deliver everything without a hitch, the money will come on its own. The word of mouth is such an underestimated thing, and people always try to like encapsulated like word of mouth is something you need to do like this or like that, and in order to transfer it online or whatever, like you need a good Google My Business page, you need good reviews on this platform. It doesn't. Your work can speak for
I
itself.
mean, man,
And
we built this
especially
company
in the
based on
yeah,
word of
and
mouth.
especially in connections like these. So it's much more important, if you ask me, not to get in like good terms with a company, but to get in good terms and good relations by working with people who are in those companies who actually deliver work.
Exactly.
We had so much work by basically I was working on website for a content on a website for a company that was doing the design for that website. I needed to help them with some event tracking, and I did that work with developers of some other company, etc. They all knew what I weighed, I knew what they weighed, and we just consistently drop projects or refer new clients to one another. I mean, word of mouth is greatly unappreciated thing, and completely underestimated when it comes to this work. But if you keep that mantra, I do my work properly, I do my work flawlessly, even if there is an error or something that comes up, it's no issue for us to resolve it. There's no like anxious things behind it, there's no bad blood, and it just grows naturally,
It does.
organically.
Yeah,
It
exactly.
does.
I
And
agree with you like 100%.
By the
yeah,
way,
and
regarding your CEO position,
wait,
uh,
before you change the subject, I
yeah,
want to add one
sorry.
more thing. Um, Everything you said is absolutely true, and I want to add one more thing. I'm always trying to build relationships with the people I'm working with for the client,
Yeah,
right? So um, it's not delivering great work on time. He- Everything that's the most important. But then these people I've been working with for a few months or a year, that are from the client side. I build trust with them. I try to build trust with them, and and them with me, and so that whenever they talk to someone else, whenever someone asks them for how they do SEO in their business, like every conversation they have, I'm gonna, come in mind for work related. But it's genuine. It's not like a trick. But I'm trying to build a relationship. For example,
yeah,
in the begin, not the very first time I talk to someone, but even when it's the beginning of an engagement and I'm talking to my contact in the client, I'll ask them, I know what I need to do to make this company grow. What do I need to do to make you look better?
yeah,
Internally, in the company you work for. Like, I can help the company get more leads, but I want to help you grow in your position. I want to help you be better perceived in your business.
exactly, exactly,
And they
exactly.
love that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It was always a sure shot whenever I tried to do that, to build a relationship like that. It was always a sure shot. Also, the thing that I wanted to ask you is, again, regarding that CEO, it's not about position of CEO, but can you tell me, you never wanted to be an engineer, but you have that mindset. So you're now doing CRO, you did analytics, you're doing SEO, you're always focusing on input and output, like these are the input stuff, these are the deliverables or
Yeah.
the metrics data that I want to get from it.
Yeah.
How much do you, even if you didn't want to be a software engineer, can you tell me how much did that influence your
Oh.
work?
Tremendously. Tremendously. You can't even imagine. First of all, I'm still writing code, right?
Yeah, but your
I've
code
taken
for
on
yourself, right?
and I've taken on some programmatic SEO projects, which I
Okay.
coded, from scratch. Like I do write code, but even when I was in college, I was like, I don't want to do code full time because I don't like the cave mentality of being a software engineer. I
Yeah.
want to work on the business side of things as well. Remember, I said I was doing like
Yeah.
finance and stuff. So right now, and all these years, being in this combination of marketing and tech has been the perfect middle ground for me because it has both, right? So even right now, running my own business, having to do with sales, having to deal with clients, I do invest a lot of time on the business side of things as well, right? And then the execution of the work is all a software engineer influenced, 100%. It's all
Yeah,
like
yeah.
algorithmical, analytical, structured, 100%.
You also mentioned like doing work, SEO work for some local companies, local businesses. Um, when I started working, I mean, I haven't worked for specifically locally in my local area, but I worked for a company that handles SEO for local businesses in US and Canada. It really, I mean, in order to do that work, I mean, you can follow through some steps that you need to do in SEO campaigns, but in order to actually do the work properly, you need to understand their work. So I wore a lot of hats. So I was a restaurant owner, I was a baker, I was a
Nice.
car cleaner, dentist, etc., etc. Uh, did you wear a lot of hats? Did you have the same approach in your
Yeah.
work. So regardless if it's a big company, if it's a smaller company, was that this something that you would advise people to actually do rather than just focusing on steps in SEO campaign that they need to do?
Try to understand. I mean, effectively, but when I say try to understand to the deepest level what the client does, how it works, who they're selling it to, what problem they solve. Like, try to understand. I'm a generalist by nature, so that came very easily to me because I'm naturally interested in various industries and how things
Yeah.
work. Like combine curiosity with a generalist approach and an engineer. It's like the perfect breed for SEO. And I love learning. I have built stuff, blogs and
Yeah.
products on learning. Um, but it's hard to explain how well it compounds, right? Like once
Yeah.
you start understanding more and more businesses, the next one becomes just easier and easier to understand, and
Exactly.
terminology starts repeating itself. It's like
Mhm.
you get so much better in delivering this, and you learn so many things. You become a more interesting person. Like, forget SEO. If you were to date, you're a more interesting person as long as you don't get
Yeah.
too nerdy.
Yeah, that's part, like the part of Agile Manifesto, individuals and interactions over processes and tools. If you start actually understanding the individuals' interactions behind that business, it will be much more easier to actually
Yeah.
form and follow a process or to make a tool for their,
Exactly. I mean,
execution.
education is the first step. Like, you need to
True.
educate the client about your services, how SEO will work. Then, I mean, a client also needs to educate you about his business, his goals, vision, and everything. So you can like compile everything and then actually kick off with the project.
What was
A
your
question.
biggest
Cool.
SEO challenge that you had? No, let me rephrase. What was your biggest technical SEO challenge that you had
Oh,
since you started
um,
working?
yeah. I mean, you won't hear anything like crazy, but I've been working on two businesses in Greece, very big ones. One is like an insurance aggregator, and the other is like a delivery app, like food delivery app. Both of which are custom builds. And we've had to work on things from like implementing status codes correctly, you know, like and they were already pretty big when I started working with them. So it's not like these problems, I could suggest solutions from the beginning and they would do them correctly. It was like things were already major and we had to fix things, without them breaking on everything you can imagine, like HTTP to HTTP redirects being 307.
Yeah,
The
yeah, yeah, yeah.
wrong status codes. Um,
They had a page that
Wow.
says 404 but doesn't return a 404
no,
status
no.
code.
Even
Yeah.
worse, they would just rewrite the URL to the homepage.
Are you
And the
kidding
status
me?
code was 200 on the original URL. The
Are
wrong
you
one.
kidding me?
No, it was
Oh
bad, man.
god damn it, that was hell, man.
Yeah.
I know. Been there. Been there. I know what hell it is.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
is.
Oh
that's
And I've
man.
had
that.
two. I had two of those right now. It's like, fuck.
Okay, I feel you. Yeah. Also, how did you communicate that with those? How did you communicate that with the developers? Did you just tell them, "Hey, you're getting this, and I want to get this," or did you communicate like the whole solution behind it?
The whole
The
thing.
whole
The
solution.
whole
Yeah,
solution.
cool. Cool.
With
Good to know.
the benefit of having a product person on the client side who understands that what I'm saying is important. So I had that ally internally to help, push things forward.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. So those are the things that when you look at them when you look at them it's they're not that big of a deal for you right now. But I couldn't find like two or three people in my whole, I mean, work time to that actually had those issues, that had those steps, that resolved those issues without actually having to hire, like, I don't know, new external teams to actually get new developers on board, that actually knew the ways on how to resolve it and to communicate with the developers, even though themselves are not the developers of that product, of that app, or have like much experience in the development itself.
I wouldn't be able to do that if I weren't originally a
Yeah,
coder.
coder. Got
without
it.
your background, yeah.
Yeah.
And like, I want to ask you, how do you prioritize issues when you do a technical SEO audit? And like, what are your tools, like go-to SEO tools, or which one do you use when you do technical SEO audits?
Yeah. I mean, I'm an Ahrefs guy in everything. Uh, Even my audits are on Ahrefs. Screaming Frog is there for complementary purposes. Sometimes just you need that extra thing from Screaming Frog.
Yeah.
What? What happened?
Yes, Screaming Frog is just complimentary. Okay, okay.
Only because I don't generally need all that extra.
No, no, just kidding, just kidding. I always start with Screaming Frog. I always needed like
He
first
loves
input of the
Screaming Frog.
website
No,
itself.
it's
So I
amazing.
want to know the on-site, the technical part. Then I go to Ahrefs. But I know that it's just a matter of flavor. It's not like a
Yeah.
specific type. I didn't think that you need to do it that way.
It's also one more thing, right? And I'm trying to build a team. We're not a primarily or almost at all link building agency, right? So we are trying to. I'm trying to build a team that does all of SEO, right? Full stack SEO, including some kind of technical. And I'm trying to hire from Greece, and Greece is not that full of SEO talent, right? So I've had to bring in juniors and people interested in SEO but not yet experienced and train them. Screaming Frog and using it well is complicated as hell compared to Ahrefs.
Yeah, and you want to
starting from
just
there.
keep it in the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you just want to keep it under the same roof. One tool, one ecosystem, and let's use that
Yeah.
for it.
It's
Exactly.
more scalable. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the issue.
Okay.
Whenever I wanted to scale like anything or to transfer my knowledge or to actually get on board new people, I always had an issue because they always approach with some new tools or specific tools that resolve specific things, but I wanted to have like a stack of tools that I can always rely that have long-term support, etc. Ahrefs always captured me with scalability. So you want to have more accounts, you want to tie in their API, you want to do a bunch of exports. When you scale a team with Ahrefs, they will constantly just charge and charge and charge.
Yeah.
You have 5 people on board, it's a K a month to have it. My approach was always to focus on some tools that I don't. For instance, Screaming Frog is one of them, and I really rely on Screaming Frog for a lot of data. But even with it, I used SEO Macroscope, which is basically an open source tool that was replicated Screaming Frog. It didn't have many developers behind it. I mean, it's open source, and it didn't have much updates behind it. But from all of the stacks, Ahrefs and Screaming Frog were the ones that were left. It's better approach what you have. So let's keep it under Ahrefs. Let's keep everything under the same roof. Again, it's more of a flavor thing. So
Yeah.
for
it's
me,
more
who
than a-
started with Screaming Frog, I will always first do crawling with Screaming Frog, then go to Ahrefs. But for you who plans ahead, who wants to onboard new people, etc., it's much better to have everything consolidated under one tool and that's it.
Yeah.
So, have you explored any other tools? Like, I mean, they all have their form of metrics, they all have their form of weighings of those metrics, but what's your thought on Majestic SEO, for instance, compared to Ahrefs?
I can't say I've really used it. I mean, not that I've never like used, but I can't say I've actually have. The only tool I could speak a little bit about is SEMrush, other than the other two, right? But Majestic, although I know what it can do, I know how to use it. It's not a tool I've actually utilized in real situations enough to have an opinion.
SEMrush has one thing that Ahrefs doesn't that I really like. They have like flagging of commercial and educational informational keywords. So that flag, if that flag would exist in Ahrefs, I would never use SEMrush.
I think they're working. I think
whatsoever.
they're working on it.
If they build, I mean, I haven't checked their backlog. I check from
No,
time
I
to
mean
time
like
their backlog of
like
things
it's
that they're
gonna be live.
do.
It's gonna be live soon or something.
Awesome. I
Oh,
haven't
that's
checked them
nice.
since like I think I haven't checked their backlog for like 6 months since they had that conference. It was a while back. But yeah, if they implement that part, then SEMrush for me would basically be obsolete. Ahrefs has a much
Yeah.
better data, larger database. They have a much better crawler. They implement data from two data streams, like they use Google Keyword Planner and WordStream for keyword data, etc.
Yeah.
And I get it. I get it. I would
Yeah.
much more focus. The only thing for Majestic is they have that trust flow and citation flow and topical flow. Those were always more important things for me than it was a pure domain authority, page authority. But
I agree with you.
you can kind of organically build those metrics. For instance, you open a website and you see that they talk about cars, they talk about babies, they talk about technology, etc. It's topically relevant, and you can naturally build that mindset yourself. You wouldn't
Yeah.
use Majestic for it. But if there was a thing where you need like a huge data set and 10k websites and you need to kind of structure and reorganize them, that thing was always much better as a pointer than it was in Ahrefs domain authority and I mean domain rating and page rating.
Yeah, and I think if I were to structure a team like I'm doing right now, I would always go with Ahrefs. I think it's the most comprehensive tool. I really trust its data more than anyone else.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
and it's
but
used by a lot of people. So when you discuss and when you try to explain whatever of those metrics, they kind of already know it or it's in their same ecosystem. So it's much more easy to scale when working with other agencies and with other teams.
yeah, but I feel like the scalability point was absolutely valid. I would still scale with that for team members, for the people actually using it and clicking on it. But I'm doing some exploration with its API nowadays for some software like automations I want to build, and bro, it took me for 2 calls for for like a few keywords and everything. It takes $2, whereas Data for SEO, which has all the SEO APIs, for the same request it would get like 15 cents.
Wait. It took you $2 from Ahrefs API. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's
When I
it's
wanted,
incredibly expensive.
yeah, when for instance, I moved to Nightwatch.io
Uh-huh.
to use for keyword rank tracking compared to Ahrefs because it's super expensive. For instance, what I get for $80 on Nightwatch, it would take me around I think it's last number I remember for the amount of clients that I had, so I was not completely utilizing the $80 on Nightwatch. It would take me $400 or $450 to utilize the same things, the same data that I needed to track in Ahrefs. And it was like, hell no, I'm not
Yeah.
scaling it with Ahrefs.
Yeah, no,
For keyword ranking specifically.
no,
No.
I agree with you. I
Yeah.
agree with you.
We already discussed this. Like we shouldn't rely on too many tools. You
Yeah, and the
know.
ones that you rely on, they completely like capture you in their. I mean,
Exactly.
they capture your process completely in their tool set. That the moment you try to ditch them, they basically blackmail you. So that's the reason why I always turn to either something that
Indirectly.
has long-term support or something that I can make myself. But I could never
Yeah.
escape Ahrefs. They have a crawler, and that crawler has generated such a big database. Even if you can replicate the domain rating and page rating like metrics, etc., even if you can get and generate data about their traffic, etc., it's still at that scale that it will take you like, I don't know, 20 years to catch up with them. At least 20 years.
Yeah.
And also you will again need some initial data set from them in order to form further metric data based on
Yeah.
some input.
I agree.
Yeah. Dimitris, let's say you have a client who has two different products on its website and it's already generating some organic traffic. They did SEO before, but he isn't satisfied with the results. And now he's asking you to implement some SEO strategies for these two products. And he wants, let's say, to growth by 20% in organic revenue in the next 3 or 4 months. How do you ensure that your SEO strategies are aligned with the company's revenue and business goals?
I'd start. I'd start by telling him to change his goals. First thing,
Bam.
in like let me do what I need to do for you. Like, let me do the holistic approach. Let me grow everything, and eventually that will result, like a little bit later, but will result in growth, in
Yeah,
bigger
but
growth and
like,
everything.
do you tell him that immediately, or do you first do some analysis and get back with your feedback?
Probably some analysis, but with
Yeah,
experience, you can get the insights you want in like a few hours. If it's a tough
exactly.
conversation like this one, even faster if
Yeah,
it's like a simple meet and greet with a client. But let's say they insisted on that. Let's say they insisted on this our business goal. This is what we want you to, come back on. I would, I would just do the opposite of what I would do usually, and I would focus on high intent, keywords, and I would probably call you guys up and talk about some link building as well, and you know, uh,
I would ask a question. A 20% jump, I mean 100% jump, is same from going from 1 to 2, as
yeah,
it
I
is
know
the
that.
same
I
from
didn't
going from 100
specify,
to
but I know
200.
that.
Also, if we're talking in absolute numbers, like you want to increase revenue from 10K to 15K, how will I ensure that you don't set up a sale that is immediately going to drop that value of that
Yeah,
product
yeah,
for
yeah.
30% or something because Black Friday is close? So there are a lot of fucking variables there that you need to cover.
Yeah. Guys,
um,
I have some. Yeah,
no, go
please,
ahead, go
please,
ahead,
please.
please.
Yeah, I have something interesting to share with you, and I want to hear both of you, like your opinions.
It's on.
It's the situation that I had with some of the previous sales calls. So hear me out. There is a client who provides a product that's helping C# developers to write and maintain less code by eliminating some boilerplate, generating it dynamically during compilation, some things like that. So basically, when we spoke about the content strategy, he said that he's paying $1,000 for an article because he's hiring a developer content writer who knows how development works, and he is afraid to let any other writer write on their blog because he's afraid of ruining his reputation. So what do you think about that? Is this something necessary, or could he like do some proofreading of some articles being written from an SEO agency or something like? Can you give me your opinion? Feel free, Dimitris, to give
Oh,
your opinion
Nenad,
on
go
that.
ahead first. I've talked a lot
Okay.
today.
Yeah.
First off, I would tell them, okay, so the content that we are going to write doesn't have any tie-ins to the content that you're writing. We're writing content that's specifically for SEO purposes, and we are aiming to put a set of keywords or topics that are related to what we are going to rank. However, if you want to share your expertise, authoritativeness, and that part,
EAT, right?
yeah, if you want to do that, you will still continue doing your content for it, and that content is irreplaceable. So, in this term, we are not taking over the whole content production. You're still going to proceed with your content production in the frequency that you can do, in the quality that you can do. The content that we are producing is here just to either support it with specific terms, keywords, syntax that we are aiming for to increase specific keyword ranking or something, to cover some specific topics. This content doesn't have to be that much in depth and doesn't serve the same purpose you are writing your content for. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you would have the last call, like, is this content something okay to be published on your website? You
Mm-hmm.
will have the opportunity to do a couple of revisions, one or two max. So if after second revision you don't like it, we're just gonna ditch the content and do another one.
Yeah,
That's
like you
it.
would offer a demo article just to prove case it.
Not a demo article, not
Okay.
necessarily a demo article is something that I will probably offer them immediately before we continue with that. But the whole point is,
Mm-hmm.
I would first try and explain these are two different sets of content that serve two different types of goals. What we are doing is not aimed with the same goal you are doing. And if it hurts your bottom line, you will know if it hurts your bottom line. You're talking about branding, we're talking about SEO. We have methods and metrics in our set that we are using to justify this content and its effectiveness on SEO. But if you see it, if you're looking it through brand image and brand perspective, then we're not talking about same thing. You're not hiring us for SEO. You're hiring us for online reputation management, for branding, etc. We are not doing that part. We can sync with you on that part, but the goal of this content is not aimed towards it. So that would be my
Dimitris, do you agree with Nenad? Would you add
everything
something?
everything Nenad said is exactly on point, and I'll add to it some practical strategies. So the question is very interesting because I've had this exact same problem. I have a client that's software that developers use, not the same software that developers use, and their CEO was like, I don't want basic content on my website because people are gonna think we're talking down on them, right? So I want only expert level content on the website.
Yeah.
So and they would all write it internally and review it internally. Similar situation. So I made them. I argued a lot to make that happen, but they had their blog, and we made an academy. So same website, same domain, new subdirectory called Academy, which I was like, the whole concept of that is basic content. Like, what is C#? Let's call it that. No, that's not one of the topics, but let's say that, right? So, what is topics? Like definitional, easy, but high volume, low difficulty, basic stuff that's great for an SEO company to write and get traffic of them. We optimize them for CRO. The 5 top performing pages on the website are from that subdirectory right now, or at least 5 in the top 10, right? And that was like one practical way we solved that. And everything I said everything Nenad said. We're gonna give it to you for review. This is all happening, right? And that's one thing. And the other thing I want to say is, in spending 1,000 for an article, I think is excessive, right?
Yeah.
Even if they were to keep that flow, they could fire a cheaper developer to write, developer writer. Even if he's concerned that that's not gonna be as high quality, it would still make sense to hire a developer to write an article for like 300 or 400, and then hire another developer for another 100 and 150 to edit the piece of content the first one wrote.
Exactly.
So developers have seen it and it would cost half as much.
For instance,
Exactly.
I would rather have a person going to Stack Overflow, picking out the best questions that have the highest engagement, and then just consolidate a list of 10 questions and send out to the whole development team and just say, answer this, pick a question from here and answer it. I would form a response, I would post it on Stack Overflow, and I would consolidate all those 10 Q&As and have it as an article somewhere on my website. Now just imagine how much less resources you need to do that form of content and to still get what you're aiming for.
If you want to talk about how to structure your C# project, yes, you need a highly qualified developer to write, talk about patterns and everything. But if you want to talk about something, how to import a module, in C# or something like that, I'm not a C# developer, but let's say if you want to explain a simple feature which will probably have more search volume and probably still low keyword difficulty, you can write that. And I love the Stack Overflow reference from Nenad. Like, you can do what he said, or you can have one of your developers or any developer that's cheaper than $1,000 go through 10 different Stack Overflow threads on the same problem, consolidate the solutions, and answer that one question on the blog. Same problem, one keyword, one question, with consolidated different solutions and points. That it's gonna rank well.
You can even form it in your company. Like, I worked for a software developer company. I had the similar issue, and I just formed it like form of a game. So you get a reward of some type if you answer this one question from Stack Overflow, and I gave you a list of 10, 20, 50 questions and I picked those questions because I picked out like a technology and I'm looking for the highest engagements. So answer this, and that's a go. So, and if you do that, you will be rewarded some kind of reward. So I will either give you some cash for buying some new tools, or I will give you a gift card to do this or to do that, or it will accumulate to a day off that you can use whenever. But
Very
still,
good.
it's cheaper, way cheaper than doing it for
Exactly. That's what I was
$1,000.
Very
thinking
good.
about, and that's why I
Also,
wanted to bring up
also,
this
when you
topic.
need to think about the topic, you need to form some content calendar. You need to figure out several different topics to have to
Yeah.
write them. Will you write them in
Yeah.
time? Will something new come up or something? Here, you already have like a strategy, like these are the questions and just answer these questions. I'm not telling you think of a topic that you would think that people will read or
Yeah.
look for. Here's a specific problem. Find me a solution. Advise a solution based on your expertise.
Imagine a contest within a company like that. Let's say in Q4, the one that gets the most reputation on Stack Overflow gets an extra salary or something.
We did that. We did that. We did that, and it actually works, and it can affect both their employee branding, their company branding, their
course.
authoritateness, their expertise, etc.
You're right.
But you need to, but in that way, you first just need to have them understand this content is for this goal and for these purposes. This content is for this goal and these purposes. And they immediately figure out like whatever content we write is specifically tied into any other purpose that we're using here. No.
Yeah.
Content for SEO is content for SEO. Content for branding is content for branding.
Yes.
You can't match them in a single basket.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Dimitris, right at the beginning, you said how you went to Starbucks to write content with pen on paper. So I want to ask you, like, how has SEO changed since then, and how do you stay ahead of changes in search engine algorithms, and also ensure your clients do too?
First of all, I've been blessed with no severe problems in the last few core updates.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly because my clients are actual like businesses with very strong brand signals, and they're enterprise level, so their websites are protected mostly from the last few campaigns. So to start from the end, I stay updated. The one of the first things I've done, and it's changed everything, is I've followed a lot of people that actually share good SEO stuff on all platforms. So if you go on my Twitter, you'll see a lot of SEO. If you go on my Facebook, you'll see a lot of SEO. If you go on my Instagram, you'll see a lot of SEO, less than the other ones. So if you go on my LinkedIn, you'll see a lot of SEO, right? Like content and everything. So even if I'm not on top of something, the community will let me know, like immediately.
Yeah.
Right? I learn faster than any of my SEO peers, not you guys, but the day people, what happens in the industry, just because I follow other people who will immediately write about it as soon as it happens. That's been a game changer for me. I'm always on top of things. And
do you
like
have any feed burner for it?
Sorry?
Or
No.
do you have any tied-in
No.
feed burner, or just scrolling your
Yeah.
social media?
Yeah, casually, like every other person, I spend about an hour a day on socials, which is not great, not bad either, not too bad. And that has a lot of SEO input, by design, the way I've designed it, right? And
I love the term "the way I designed it." So you designed your social media and
My
what your
algorithm.
follower. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had to escape of all of that. So I now rely on I know which websites to track and when I should look for something. But the feed burner
I'd love
sounds
that
good.
list, by the way.
Yeah, will do.
I'd
We'll
love
follow
that
up.
list.
We'll follow up, but to be honest, you're probably following them all
Okay.
together already.
Ne-
But I'll follow
nevertheless.
up. Two names I wanna get from this are Barry Schwartz and Gary Ilias. So, and you probably have them somewhere.
Yeah.
But those
Yeah.
are two names that I want to take out from here. Also, Dan from Dan SEO, but that's a whole. He's a
Yeah.
whole new beast to tackle. He's
Yeah.
one of the old guards, a caveman.
And to answer the other part, how SEO has changed.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
changed a lot, and it hasn't really at the same time, right?
Exactly.
It's like
Exactly.
content production is a whole new beast nowadays with AI.
Yeah.
But man, I've been doing SEO for so many years, and everyone's like, SEO is dead. SEO is changing. SEO is gonna be completely different.
No.
It's the same thing.
No,
It's
it's the
the
same
same
thing.
for
Some
link building.
parameters.
Yeah.
The same parameters that we used for technical for on-site, when you know this is the input, this is the output, you need to set the canonical. You always had to set the canonical.
Exactly.
Google always told you that it could render JavaScript. You cannot rely on that part. It never could properly render JavaScript. So
exactly.
some things never changed, even though they're saying it changed since 2011 or something. Link will always have the highest value because it's a certain signal that you
Exactly.
can track and connect several websites with. I mean, all of the other all other signals have some room for errors or some windows of accuracy or something, but these are like straightforward. You want to block something from being indexed, you put a meta robots no index. You want something to ban from crawling, you put a robots.txt, ban it from crawling, or completely remove the page altogether. Those are the things that are just like axioms that never changed.
True. And you
So
know what?
it has changed, but it hasn't.
You know what? I've worked with clients either internally or as an agency my whole life. We don't do black hat. The most gray hat we do is like paid link building, like everyone else. That's right. I mean, it's considered black hat, but who cares?
Yeah, but who cares?
My point is, the basics, like the important stuff, like producing quality content that's been researched, improving internal linking, make sure the basics like canonicalization and indexation are taken care of. Like these things are the same. Not only that, they just become more and more important over time because the strange techniques that are on the gray area, they just get killed one after another over the years. So if you're doing like high quality work of the basics, you're better and better in SEO, not worse, which is fun. People try to find the silver bullet. Just build good processes. That's the silver bullet.
It was always. I mean, the whole point of SEO, they always pushed it towards trust and UX. Google did that with its 10 blue links. For instance, it doesn't matter how your website looks, it doesn't matter how your website feels, loads, or how much content or pages it has. When I get search results, you will always get 10 blue links. And it's on Google to decide, based on a lot of data behind it, which one, in what order those 10 blue links would go. But that's basic UX. That's basic UX. So ditch out all of the factors, just focus on trust, pick out the ones in order, and order them in terms of trust. If you just have that mindset, I'm going to focus on the best user experience here on the website, so when a user lands on my web page, they will find a solution to the problem they're investigating on, which might be just looking for some info, just looking for some recommendation, tutorials, products to buy, or whatever. I will allow them to find that with ease. So no commercials, no banners, no interstitial redirections or whatever. All of the things, when you look at the content guidelines, they will tell you all those things. They will just list you the things that you shouldn't have. But the whole point was just focused on giving them the most relevant thing and that it's easy for them to find it. Focus on having a user finding what the solution to a problem they're experiencing right now, and that's about it. If you just have that mindset, all of the other things are just tools. So a redirection is a tool, canonical is a tool, a link built is a tool for it. Deliverable, call it what you wish, but it all got clouded under a noise. Content is king, and that's what really made me sick, and that's what causes a lot of confusion in the SEO world, especially with beginners.
Yeah,
especially
I think that it's like one of those things where it's not fully wrong, like that content is important. It's not like content is not important,
but fully, so you can never just unjustified it, like don't do content or don't do bullshit content.
Yeah, I think I have a way of explaining to people. That's mostly to people who don't really understand what SEO is. It's like anytime someone types something in Google, they're asking a question. It might be a one-word question or it might be a longer one, but they're asking a question. That's the intent they have, right? If your website doesn't have the answer to that question, you're never going to rank for that search.
Exactly.
Right? So that's where content comes in. You need to have the answer to the question, right? To the question you care about, like, answering.
Yeah.
And that's the importance of content. Like, you need to have, you need to have a good answer. Right?
Yeah, that
and then
ties
you need to
into
answer as many
your bottom
questions
line.
as you can that are relevant to your company. That's it. And then
Yeah,
there's
to
everything
company
else.
product, to your bottom line, selling this solution to whatever problem you're having.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Huh?
Also, there was a swap at some point. I mean, it kind of began in 2008 when they started first implementing voice search, but that was probably the biggest change. Hear me out. In 2008, they implemented voice search. They started testing out voice search. In 2000, I think 13 was when Hummingbird update was actually introduced, when they started using NLPs and to discern what actually content and context behind that content was. But the whole point is, whenever you use search now, you go in, you need to find, I don't know, car mechanic in Athens. So you're going to type in car mechanic Athens. But when you use voice search, you will do, where can I find the nearest mechanic? And you're in Athens. It will exactly know, but that's converse. No, that's
Like
not a long
long
tail
tail
keyword.
keywords.
That's a question. That's a
Questions.
conversational search that you're actually doing.
Question
But the
keyword.
thing
Yeah,
is
yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
although that
Exactly.
conversational search and that voice search has changed, and I mean it's used much more today with Alexas, Google Homes, Bixby's, and whatever you're not using those assistants, people are still tied to that original search pattern, like car mechanic Athens. So when you say like they're going to use a single word or they're basically asking a question, but the question is simplified when you use it as a type and when you use it as a voice.
Exactly.
Yeah, so when you that's probably the biggest I mean misconception when people are actually thinking about SEO and how it ties into answering that question. I tried that method of explanation a long time. I mean a lot of times, but I always get challenged with that. But yeah, how does where is my nearest car mechanic tie into car mechanic Athens? I know that you tell me that people are searching it for, looking for it that way. You're telling me that I need to have an answer and content written around that way, but I just see a primary keyword here, car mechanic Athens. I'm not seeing the question at all. I'm not seeing the
Yeah, I
context
mean,
at all.
I bridge that gap with talking about intent, right?
Yeah.
And showing the intent of the first page and just explaining that, the person that wrote this, effectively their intent was that, right? What's there on the first page, effectively, especially the query is at least a little bit popular, and I
Was
can
it
bridge
more
it.
difficult for you to explain that to, let's say, if you're working with an agency, a company, whatsoever, companies of scale that you work with usually have a person who is in charge of SEO management or communication behind it. And when you need to communicate, like, if they have a mindset like primary, secondary keywords and long tail, short tail ones, and you want to communicate the intent behind it with questions and conversational search, how did you bridge that gap? Did you
I'm
have issues with
I've had
that?
issues. I've had issues, but I will take it a step back and say this. I'm not working for my clients,
Yeah.
and I mean I'm not their employee,
Yeah.
right? I'm following as a person. I'm following a more like I know what I'm saying. Shut up and trust me approach.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
and I
stand
have that. I
behind my
have that
words,
for the from the very beginning, right? You're not gonna tell me what to do. I'm gonna tell you what to do for what you've brought me here.
Exactly.
Obviously, the realistic version is a little more equal, right? We're partners in this, but by no means do you, like, person in the company, dictate how I'll work with primary and secondary keywords. I'm telling you this is what we need to do. You got me here for
And
a
I
reason.
stand behind
Yeah,
those
trust me.
yeah. Got it. It's the same. Whenever I was like pushed to, hey, we need to do this thing. No, you need this. If you want me to do that thing, I don't know. It was always like I would rather always just tell them no. You want me to do a thing that I know it's not going to affect positively your bottom line here, and I would just move away and tell you no, I'm not doing that. But there are cases
There
when,
are.
I usually when it's only if a client is too cocky or too convinced, then I'll tell him, okay, not an issue. I'll do that and I'll set up tracking and testing for what you just told me. But you're asking me for deliverables. You're not asking me for a KPI or a goal. So in this case, I'm a deliverable provider, and here is the KPIs behind my deliverables that you can track. So that's it. We
No,
have that
that's a very
relationship.
good approach. That's a very good approach. I've generally managed to I'm not. I made it
Not
sound
always, not
I
could
made it
always.
sound very
Yeah.
strict earlier. I'm very friendly in my communication. Um, I've always managed to convince them, but I think what you said would be great if I couldn't manage. Like, yes, but since you're insisting on that, which I'm telling you not to, we're gonna track the performance of that. You're not gonna
Yeah.
judge me on the performance of
Yeah.
the KPI.
A while ago, I was like completely exclusive, like completely ditching them and telling them, no, that won't work. It will hurt your bottom line. I will not be the guy who is going to take that step and do that for you. You find another person because I don't want to be blamed for it. And you will always get the blame, even though if you explain to them. But in this case, I mean, after a while, I just learned to say, okay, let's test it, and I set up a test. Now, to consolidate, you're asking me for a set of deliverables. Here is the set of deliverables that you will use to test out this idea. Here's also a test method where you can test out that idea. And that's it. And there's no bad blood in it. I mean, usually there is bad blood. Usually there's always that little voice in me that says, "Aha, I told you
I
so."
told you so.
Yeah, I told you so. It gives me
You know
some
what?
joy.
You know what? It's also like always a matter. Like you have to work the relationship, right? Sometimes
Yeah.
they insist on one thing, and sometimes we take the hit. Like we do everything we would do anyway, and the one thing they want is that extra work. Is it out of scope? Yes, but they're happy because I did what they wanted and I've done my things and they see
Yeah.
growth. And I tell them it's not because of your things, it was because of our things. But hey, we got what we wanted, so we're all happy. And if they're not asking for too much, I'll take the hit and make it happen regardless. If they're asking for too much, I'll explain why not and try see where it goes.
Yeah, but hear me out. We grew in this field from two different sets of environments. For instance, I'm using this analogy because I used it a while back. So you have a person who is going to build your house. He builds a wall, and one of the bricks is like pointing out compared to other bricks for like 5 centimeters. And when you tell him, "Hey man, this brick is like pointing out, you need to resolve it," he will tell you, "No, no, the guy that puts the plaster over it, he will resolve it." And then comes the guy who does the plaster, but he requires more tools, more resources because he needs more plaster to resolve it. You don't have as many. He does his work, but it still goes out. He'll tell you, "Hey, no worries. The guy who does the paint job, he will resolve it. He'll find something. He'll do something like place a frame or place a shelf over it and something." And that guy comes there and does his work, but it still is pointing out, and you will. And that guy, because he's the last in line, he will take all the heat. And when you're discussing why your wall doesn't look pretty and it's bending because it has that brick pointing out, it will be the last guy that did work on him that's taking the blame. Now just imagine, when it comes to SEO, that we're doing link building, we're basically the last in line. So any other person who is doing SEO strategy,
Exactly.
on-site, technical, content writing, or anything, the link builders will always be the last in line, and they will always take the worst of heat. Like, we're not ranking because we don't
It's
have
always
enough
their
links,
fault.
because these links are low quality. And when you check their page, the page itself was probably no index because somebody did some other work. But you will always take that heat. So this is where my
Yeah.
whole idea of like, let's test it, or just pushing back and say, okay, I'm a deliverable provider. here's what you can expect from me. But if it was for SEO and SEO management where you handle the full managed SEO campaign from the start, then I could take your approach.
I think, of course, you're absolutely right. I think this is a problem that not only we have, like not only you
No,
have,
no,
right?
this is all arounder. Yeah.
And I mean in many industries as well. And I think the way it's been solved in many other cases is people take a look before they do the work. So
Yeah.
the painter comes in, and before they start painting and putting frames and everything, they see that and they're saying, "This I cannot fix."
Yeah,
right? I can
exactly.
improve it, but I cannot fix.
fix.
Right? So don't blame it on me. And if you do that beforehand, it saves you a lot of heat.
Yeah.
And I feel like for you guys, I don't know if you did already, but taking a look at the,
We always do that.
the rest of the SEO and be like, you have some problems, right? We are going to do the bill, but you have some problems. And then, I don't know, like, reach out to me, right? And we get it, we
Exactly.
sort it out together, like, as a team for that, since you do link building only, right? But don't go in and ignore the brick that
we always do
sticks out.
that, and whenever we tell them, so for instance, when if they outreach us for, if they reach out to us for link building campaigns, so to form it or just for deliverables, even if they just approach us and tell us, hey, we want 10 links, these anchors, these targets, these are the metric thresholds, whatever, we always do tell them, hey, you have issues on the website, you have issues with this, and just to note, building links for this page or for this website at this state will be like pouring water in a bucket that has holes. So they will not have as big of an impact compared to if you resolve these issues. Keep them in mind and you decide. Do you just want links? Do you want us to proceed with this work? But keep in mind this, and that. So we always take that approach. I mean, that was the one and only method I could resolve that heat that we were getting at the end of the line. But
Exactly.
it was difficult to get to that part. It took us not took us, it took me 5 years to get to that mentality before actually implementing it. But the way we did it, it now allows me to also be a deliverable provider and to be a managed SEO manager, managed SEO campaign manager who is accountable for all the metrics and the bottom line of the company if needed.
Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, guys, like I want to end up with some like serious topic. So I want to ask you. I'm gonna make some bold statements here. So I want to say like, will Google exist? I want to ask you that. Like I know it's a big statement. It's a multi-billion-dollar company, but however, here's why the thought came to my mind. So first, we have exponential growth of AI content, AI tools, and AI results. Then Google search engine page is dominated by only a few top authority websites. Like there is almost no space in competitive industry for new content websites. So why not just go to those sites directly? For example, for videos we have YouTube. For what is it type of content we have Wikipedia. We have Forbes for other things, etc. And then like the primary objective of search engines should be to offer all possibilities to users, like old sites, new sites, etc., and let users decide which one they wish to click and read.
Controversial statement.
Also, there is
Users
one
are
thing.
dumb.
Also, there is one thing. According to the Search Engine Journal, over 96% of top 10 ranking pages have more than 1,000 domains pointing to it. So 1,000 referring domains. So like, what is the scope for new websites? Like, how hard is it to rank in competitive industries? Where do you see this going? Like 5 years from now, what we will see on Google? What Google will be?
Netscape was
What do you
also the
think,
top
guys?
search engine. Conversational search and voice search was also and is also the new method and most used method to do Google search, yet still we use it the other way. If you're focusing on search engine optimization, then you're focusing on all search engines. The one that's the top search engine, there are
Exactly,
rules
like
and standards
all
that
the
apply to all search engines. On your website, if you have a search bar, it's a search engine of its own. YouTube is a search engine of its own, so don't focus on that part. But when it comes to Google and the way that we are using it, if it's going to be there, it's not going to be there for a while. The methods that we're using from GPT, for instance, like where you type in a question and get an answer without actually going to a website or verifying its validity, it's a thing that Google's missing, but also that GPT is missing the validation that Google gives you. Like, this is a website, it's taken from this source, and
Yeah.
this source is viable. A combination of those two would be a search engine of the future, but still none of them, even Bing tried that, other search engines tried that, and not a single one is at stage where they have something ready. Where these are not betas, these are alphas.
Yeah, but my point is like that Google won't be like uh, people won't be able to use Google in the future for problem solving because of the AI and everything.
No,
So
no, no, no,
I'm
no.
then that
The
correlates with SEO, so
No,
that can
Google
be
still
also
uses
endangered.
links and websites and pages to give some validation to it. They won't be using the same UI Google gives you now, so they won't be using 10 blue
Yeah.
links. They will be using something else. But the underlying
Yeah, exactly. That's why I got this
Yeah,
because
but
you
the
mentioned 10 blue
underlying
links.
engine behind it will not differ too much from what it is today. It will just be complemented with some other stuff that's coming in. But the UI should change and needs to change, but we're still not at that point that we can use that both.
I think
But you think it will be like
The
vastly
UI will
different
be different. The
in 10
UI
years,
will be
like 5
different,
years,
and it
10?
wouldn't be Google's per se. I mean, other search engines are there as well that have better managing of that data.
Yeah. I think I want to separate the question into two aspects, right? The first thing to say is the AI content, which is a little bit easier for me to integrate. AI content on its own is not bad or good, right? It's not. It's just what it is. It's AI content.
Yeah.
A user looks for some information. If they get their answer, if their problem is solved, no one gives if it's AI content or if it's written by human. I mean, yeah, human writing is more engaging. It's more likely to read. You're gonna spend more time on the page. Yes, right. But if my problem is answered, it's not such a problem. So I think AI will keep evolving in so many ways. Like, we don't know exactly where and how it will where it will come down to, but what I know right now is on its own it's not the problem, right? Still,
Yeah.
human content is performing better. It's gonna keep performing better for a significant amount of time, and when it doesn't, it's gonna be because it's efficient, not because it's a problem, right? So we'll get there. Now, on the other hand, when it comes to the search experience itself, I also think there are some things that are gonna go away from search engines. I've been working on some technical stuff earlier, some coding stuff. I mentioned them with the API when we were talking about the APIs. I want to learn some new coding concepts, some concepts I'm not very familiar with. I learned them through talking with ChatGPT. I didn't learn them by Googling them, by going through finding a tutorial, by going through Stack
Yeah.
Overflow. I just had a ChatGPT experience, conversation, more than once in the last few weeks. That's very telling of what's coming, right? There's some form of information that's going to be replaced the way we consume it, right? When it's information, when it's basic stuff, when it's definitional stuff. All those easy pieces of content we SEOs write, these are going away and we'll have to adapt, right? But I feel like the concept of search and the concept, especially the concept of sifting through different options, is crucial to the human psyche, not just SEO,
Exactly.
right? I will never trust Google or any platform to ask it, give me the best car mechanic in Athens, and to trust blindly the first response it gives.
Exactly.
Never.
Exactly.
I will always gonna go through a list of options, maybe reviews, maybe where they're located, some form of information consumption that will help me. Even if it's an illusion of decision, I'll have to decide which car
Even
mechanic
if
I
it's
go
the
to.
best, even if it's the best car mechanic, it still is out of your price range, so it's not the
Yeah,
best mechanic for you. Even
exactly.
if it's the best car mechanic, it doesn't cover like getting parts
Yeah,
or
good points
something,
there, guys.
Yeah.
so it's not the right for you. On another note, GPTs, I love them, so I use them, but the GPTs never know the end of the sentence when they start typing it out, because the whole point of GPTs is doing predictability,
Yeah.
which word comes next or which letter comes next. Also, GPTs work with the content that is existing on the web. We have not yet accumulated all the knowledge that there is on the web. So if someone thinks about a new concept, something that's completely new, they're going to write it out. They're going in whatever media format you can think of it. If it's a text, a video, or anything, they will publish it somewhere on the web. And what do you have for it? You have a link pointing to that new resource. If there is something that will always be a perfect signal and matching or used as a join key to tie in all the information or give validity to some other metrics or dimensions or whatever, link will always be there. So people are, in their nature, are always tied into, hey, let me see where you found out this information and how it ties in to me specifically. So there are combinations of doing like GPTs plus search engine the way the UI works now, but we're still far off, and it's more of a thing of a human nature than is to a nature of search engines themselves. So you
And
can never just go through fully relying on them GPT typing out the answer, because you know it takes only the data that already exists on the web. So another person needs to generate that new concept and publish it somewhere.
oh yeah.
GPTs cannot do it on their own.
Yeah, and for legal reasons as well, I think citation of where you got the information from will always it will be there in AI overviews as well, like it's right now in SD. So the source of the information for AI will be visible, will be clickable. That's SEO, a new form, but that's SEO,
Yeah.
right? So people, and as long as people want to sift through options to find either mechanic or information, there's room for SEO, right?
Yeah,
We may have
exactly.
to do SEO on freaking TikTok, but it's gonna still be
Yeah.
a profession that
I mean,
we're
people
gonna
do
be
it
the
on
most tailored.
Amazon.
Yeah,
I mean,
and I mean, people are like, SEO is gonna die. SEO, SEO is gonna be out the top. Literally the opposite. I think people are the search experience, the sifting through options experience is gonna just transition to somewhere else at some point, and the first people who will know that's happening is us, people in the
Yeah.
industry, right?
Yeah.
We'll be the first ones to know that Google is, losing market share. We'll be the first ones to know that this new thing came out. We were the first ones to research search GPT when they announced it, like things like that, right? So
yeah.
when
Yeah,
the
SEOs
transition
were the
is to
first
happen,
yeah.
w-
The
w-
first
when the
community
transition is to
that
happen,
used GPT Max.
exactly. We're gonna be the first ones that make try the new things out, make the transition. So I think I'm not a very big fan of the fear culture. I don't know if you can tell, right? Like if you're keen in
FOMO.
growing and keep growing, we're gonna be fine.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think that SEO will die as a concept. I do think that SEO will change. I
Yeah.
mean, the processes of SEO behind SEO will change. The only thing that I strongly believe that we can tie in now is that the link as a signal would always be as one of the strongest signals, if not first in top 3 of the major signals regarding and used for SEO purposes. So that's the only thing that I can, from the concepts and from the things that I'm seeing now, and even with new concepts like GPTs, with the algorithms, with new stores and new search engines, etc., it's always the starting point, it's always the join key, and it's one axiom that you will always use. The weighing of it, like how important it is, can change, but it will still be one of the highest weighing factors in terms of SEO
Yeah,
influence.
and lots of
Basically, yeah, I agree with you. I mean, in the end, link is an
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know the universal resource locator. So if you don't have a locator, a pointer to a resource that
Oh
you're
yeah.
basing your whole assumption of how something is of something's trustworthiness, authoritativeness, or etc. If you don't have a locator pointing to it, I can't figure out any other concept in software engineering that can tie and point me to it. I
I
really
mean,
can't.
no, no, sorry.
Basically, basically you're telling a web browser
Yeah,
how and where
exactly.
to retrieve a resource with
I
that.
don't know
So
how
it's a
else to call a server and tell him I need that specific info. I couldn't know.
Yeah, and
exactly
I
yeah.
mean,
URL is
we're getting into a little bit of opinion zone now, but it's also a very simple signal for machines to understand. Google can develop the best NLP analysis
But
software
it
in the world.
costs
It
it's
will
research
cost
costly.
so much more than just reading and assigning weight to a link, right?
Exactly.
And
Exactly. It costs too
we
much
yeah,
resources to go through that.
exactly, right? So unless something like, I don't know, a quantum computer comes along that changes completely what a lot of resources
Yeah.
mean, uh, links are gonna be there, right?
But still, even with that quantum computing, you need to first optimize it for that specific use case. Then you need to scale it. Then you need to optimize costs around those quantum computing. So for at least 20 to 30 years, we're safe
Yeah,
with
and that
links.
was just an exaggeration of what's happening.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We can retire
with
safely.
we can retire
Even
safely.
with GPTs, I mean, they had that curve when they all tried to use it as much and to implement it is in whatever they could. But now they're in that zone where they try to optimize the costs around it so they can scale it bigger, so the GPTs work better, so more people can use it, etc. And you're seeing a fall off of a lot of tools that are initially when ChatGPT launched, you had like 10 new products a day that were appearing for it. Do you see them now? I mean, those products themselves or new products coming in, they're more focused on optimizing the costs behind it. So it would, because you can make a tool that uses GPTs or whatever, but once you get 10,000 users, the API itself costs too much and it hurts your bottom line. So I'm just gonna nuke it and kill it. But they're working on those processes now so it can be more readily available. I think that something will happen also when we're talking about Google. Google is currently having a lawsuit for monopoly practices. And if there was a point in time, there were 2 points in time where Google could be killed off. There was the first time when they used Google Books, when they went to universities and scanned books so they can point you snippets of Google Books for authored pieces that actually had a copyright behind them. That was back in, I think it was 2006 or something. They were like this close to being completely shut down, and this was actually pointed by the by the FCC now for monopoly practices. If there was a point in time where Google was near death, this was it. But this is a thing that will probably last for at least 2 to 4 years. That whole process of them being judged for it, etc., for monopoly
Well, let's set
processes.
up our Bing Webmaster Analytics then, because
Did you use? Did you? So I want to know. Have you used any other search console for SEO work outside Google Search Console
Bing Webmaster Analytics for like 2 seconds.
for 2 seconds?
No, not really, but
Yeah.
but you get what I'm saying. Much less
Uh,
than Google Search Console.
I used Bing, used Yandex, and used Baidu's.
Yeah.
So
I've only used
I'm
Bing's.
covered.
I've only
Yeah,
used Bing's.
yeah, but Bing is actually a good thing to know and to note because we can talk about like Google having like a big monopoly or having the biggest market share, but you still have a non-neglecting traffic that's coming in from Bing search engine. So if I would to do managed SEO campaigns, I would implement also Bing webmaster tools as well with Google Search Console.
Plus,
And Bing has other
Google
concepts. Yeah,
no, plus Google does render JavaScript, not perfectly, not always, but the other search engines don't.
yeah,
And it's one of the reasons why I'm so strict with,
hear me
not
out.
allowing the search engine to render JavaScript, because even if Google may render and
Do it
actually index some content, uh,
because you're
nothing.
working as a search engine optimizer. It's your search engine agnostic.
Yeah,
That's it.
exactly.
Also, one thing to note, fun stuff, and I'm gonna wrap it up here. Google is ignoring meta keywords parameters since 2000, I don't know,
Long
2000s,
time ago. Yeah.
early 2010s, something like that. However, it will ignore, so it doesn't matter if you have it or not, it will completely ignore it. However, if Google Bing sees it as a negative signal, so if you have meta keywords parameter, it will automatically nuke it and ban you like a negative signal because you're using it as a parameter. So even though the one ignores it, the other one uses it as a negative signal. So you need to know all of that stuff
Interesting.
if you're yeah. So keeping it search engine agnostic, if you have that mindset from the start, you will never have to fear about Google dropping. Never.
Yeah, my final question is for you, Dimitris. This is the question that I ask every guest. What advice would you give to someone just starting in SEO who wants to grow into an expert?
All right. Apart from studying, like learning SEO, I would advise them to become as proficient as they can in one tool. Just use one tool and become as proficient as you can. And if possible, like if I were to decide for them, I would start my career in an agency, because agency SEO versus in-house SEO offers breadth over depth. And in the beginning, it's much more important that you see many different situations, many different websites, many different things, and just pick up something from everyone. I think as a junior, 1 year in an agency equals 3 years in an in-house position, right?
True.
In-house positions are for expertise and like doing some of the unique things you will never do in an agency just because they're so like specialized. And if you're into that, that's later in the career. So start in an agency, get as many like clients and different projects under your belt as you can,
Understand
and
their processes.
yeah, and SEO. Oh, another thing. SEO is not. It's not that hard. Like it is, but it's not. It's not system engineering. Okay, it just
Exactly.
isn't. Right.
Exactly.
SEO is not that hard. The processes of SEO are hard.
Yeah.
It's tough to make budgets work in SEO. It's tough to get a specific budget and still manage to get results because you want to do everything, but you can't do everything, and you have to decide what you do. So prioritization, working under uncertainty, these are the hard processes. These are the hard parts with SEO. Focus on those. The actual knowledge, like the specifics, will work. And one more advice, since I have it, don't just study white hat SEO. Just don't black hat SEO is gonna be a huge school, even if you never practice it. Like you're gonna learn a ton from what these guys are doing. Learn from them and just stick to white hat SEO for clients.
I have Black Hat SEO forum account for like 10 years, and it's one of the 4 accounts I have in Google Authenticator. And it's so I think HFC is the first, and the second one is Black Hat SEO forum, not my email, my company email. So that
No,
speaks
it
volumes.
makes it makes sense
You don't need to
though.
practice it, but you need to
No.
understand everything, the ins and outs, because Black Hat is just something that Google or other search engines have not figured out how yet to handle. So
Yeah.
it comes from a good. It doesn't always have to come from a bad place if you do Black Hat or if you investigate Black Hat. It can come from a good place as well. I mean, just take a look. A lot of hackers, they are not all working as hackers just to hurt someone's bottom line.
No.
Sometimes they're working to actually improve someone's bottom line in
Most
terms
of
of
them are
safety.
protectors.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. So
Yeah.
yeah, do black hat at least to understand it.
Yeah.
I mean, this was a
Indeed.
wonderful conversation. I mean, thank you. I know, bro. Like, I think that today conversation brought a lot of value and fresh insights
Yeah.
to whoever listened to it. So I want to wrap this up quickly. We can then stay on a call after that. So, like, Dimitris, first of all, thank you for being a part
Glad
and
to be here,
helping
guys.
us with these podcast sessions. I think what you just shared will be very valuable. Also, Nenad and you, I mean, with tons of knowledge in the SEO field, I think there is a much to learn from you guys. So, thank you for tuning in. We hope that today's
Indeed.
conversation brought you value. If you enjoyed this episode, please share, subscribe, leave a review, or whatever. Stay connected with us, and we'll see you in the next episode. Until then, keep pushing the boundaries and making an impact. See you guys.